Hudson with the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Division, and I'm joined today by Chris Nix. He is our division's alligator expert and our alligator hunt coordinator. And we're going to be talking today all about alligators in Alabama. Chris, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Maria.
I have a lot of questions for you about alligators because a lot of people throughout Alabama don't even realize that we have alligators in our state. So tell me a little bit about alligators in Alabama. Where do they live?
Right, you know, a lot of people, you're very correct on that. A lot of people in the state, they don't realize that we do have alligators, and not only that we do have alligators, but we have a pretty high population of alligators in certain areas.
Are there some parts of the state that have more alligators than others?
Well, you shouldn't be surprised to see an alligator from anywhere in the state, anywhere that has a body of water. But mainly from, if you could draw a line from around the Montgomery area south, would be kind of a breeding population of alligators within the state.
And are these alligators in ponds and lakes, running water? Where would we find them?
Well, anywhere that you have water, you could find an alligator in that area. Most of them are going to be in the riverine systems. The further south you get, typically the higher population that you're going to see of the alligators.
Now, I assume that these alligators are in these places because that's where they're finding their food. What does an average Alabama alligator eat? Well,
an alligator is going to eat pretty much anything that he wants to eat. They're a very opportunistic animal, meaning that you know, if he has the opportunity to eat something, he's going to. It could be anything from a cricket to a minnow. You know, if it's a young alligator. You know, on up to feral swine or a white-tailed deer for a fully grown alligator.
So when these alligators are catching these things, how do they do it? They just use their mouth alone?
Just their mouth, that's
okay.
it. Yeah.
So how would an alligator catch something like a feral swine?
Well, you know, of course there's videos, plenty of them online that you can see it actually happening, but you know, they're a very sneaky animal. You know, they're going to be in the water, and of course the swine are going to come up to the edge of the water. So, you know, an alligator is a pretty quick animal. You know, in a short distance.
Now, when these alligators are grabbing and eating the animals that they catch, the size of their prey, I guess, depends, like you said, on the size of the gator. So, how big? Show me with your hands how big a freshly hatched alligator would be.
Well, a small, freshly hatched alligator is usually going to be somewhere around 8 to 10 inches. You know, when it's first born, and typically they'll grow, you know, around a foot per year for, say, the first 6 to 8 years or so of their life. Now they'll continue to grow throughout their life, and but you know, once they reach a certain length, is when they really start putting on more girth rather than length.
But they'll grow until they die? They keep on growing?
They keep growing. You know, like an adult male alligator is going to peak out in length somewhere between 13 to 15 foot in length. But once they hit that, you know, close to that range in their length is when they really start putting on the girth. So they'll continue to grow. And of course, you know, an alligator is no different than us. You know, we're probably going to get a little smaller in our older years, but yeah, they pretty much grow their entire life.
Now, how often do they have to eat to keep on growing like that?
Well, an alligator is a cold-blooded animal, so it's no different than a snake.
Oh.
You know, during the winter months, they're going to be much less active. You can call it hibernating. It's not that they sleep during the winter months, but their metabolism slows down to pretty much nothing, and really they don't eat at all. But as the water temperatures and the air temperatures start increasing during the springtime, you know, their feeding activity will increase with that as well.
So in the winter they don't eat. How long can they go without eating?
Well, I guess it just depends on that certain alligator and the habitat that it's in.
But they can go for weeks and months?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I guess the less they eat, then the less quickly they're going to grow.
Well, it's no different than us. You know, if our metabolism slows down at that rate, we're not going to be required to have the amount of food that we need if we had a high metabolism like we do every day.
Okay, so in the wintertime, they're kind of toned down a little bit, not as active, not eating very much. And then you said something about the water temperature increases. So springtime comes, and then what's a gator's life like?
Right. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's you know, they're a cold-blooded animal, so their activity level is going to be higher at nighttime. if you can imagine, like in the middle of August here, excuse me, here in Alabama, temperatures are pretty high during the daytime. So the alligator is requiring for external temperatures to regulate its internal temperature. So that's why they're more active at nighttime. They can't be that active during the daytime.
Because it's too hot.
It's just too hot for them.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So the same as temperature is basically the reason why they're not active when it's really cold and not active when it's really warm.
Exact same thing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, all right, it's warmed up, it's springtime, and an alligator is moving around. Tell me about what their life is like springtime into summertime.
Well, during the daytime, during the spring and the summer months when it's really, really hot, they're going to get back into the mud, into the marshes, and get out of the sunshine. At nighttime, the crepuscular times of the day, which would be early morning and late evening, and then throughout the night is when they're going to be most active. And an alligator is pretty much going to eat, sleep, and breed. So when it's active, it's looking for something to eat pretty much the whole time.
So when I've seen on TV alligators walking around golf courses and things like that, they're not there for tea time. They're looking for what?
Food and habitat.
Okay.
Right.
So they're moving around to find a comfortable place to be and find something to eat.
Right. An alligator is just like a white-tailed deer or a turkey or anything else. It's got to have certain requirements within its habitat. Food, water, shelter, space. All four of those things it's got to have.
Now, space. Do they tolerate other gators close to them?
Well, alligators are very territorial. A lot of times with adult males, you'll see where they may be missing a portion of their tail or an appendage, one of their legs, or even part of their jaw, to where it's where they have been fighting with each other. So they're very territorial over their range as well.
Now, I mentioned seeing alligators on TV walking across the golf courses, but you don't necessarily have to see it on TV here in Alabama because you could see that in real life.
You're right.
What can they expect if they see an alligator? What can they expect if they see an alligator on their property or crossing the road? What types of situations may a person find themselves in if an alligator is moving around?
Well, first thing, if you live in central to southern Alabama and you're around a body of water, you can expect to possibly see an alligator. The important thing is to know a little bit about that animal before you find yourself in that situation. I mentioned that they're more active at nighttime. So if you live close to a canal, like say you live in Baldwin County, Alabama, and you live close to a canal, well, the smart thing to do would probably not be swimming at 12 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. But knowing a little bit about their habitat, about their feeding habits, about their aggression, and what they're capable of doing would be very important before you find yourself in a situation like that.
Because they're extremely strong and they're extremely fast.
Exactly. And I mentioned, they're always looking for something to eat, especially at nighttime. So, definitely do not feed the alligators ever. That's probably one of the biggest problems that we have from a nuisance standpoint in Alabama is feeding an alligator. And once that alligator's fed and it associates human activity with that free meal, it's always going to do that. So those are the animals that we typically end up having to remove.
So that sounds just like the complaints that I've heard about raccoons and squirrels. The people are hand feeding them in the parks, and then they start approaching people and becoming more and more bold, seeking that food source. It's the same way with something like an alligator?
Exact same thing.
Now, what type of food does a person, is there something that we can do to avoid? Does leaving trash out attack the alligators, or people feeding them on purpose?
Well, most of the time it's people feeding them on purpose.
Okay.
It could be that, say you live on a river and you go fishing, and you come back to the dock and you clean your fish, and you always throw the scraps, over the pier. Once that alligator finds that that activity is going on and sees that free meal there, then he's going to hang around. But and it may not necessarily be you that you're posing a danger to, but what about the person that comes there after you is really what you have to think about.
So we don't want the alligators to learn to associate people with something positive. We want them to leave us alone and we leave them alone.
Exactly.
But they're kind of neat to see. So if I do see an alligator on my property or in the park, can I look at it and observe it? Do I need to run, or what
No,
do I do if I
absolutely.
see a gator?
Be thankful that you get to see it. I
Okay.
mean, they're pretty cool animals. They're fun to watch, fun to see. It's not that they're doing a whole lot, but they're a pretty cool animal to see for sure. So it's not necessarily that you need to notify anyone if you do see an alligator, unless that alligator is posing a threat to, say, another human, your pets, or maybe your livestock.
So I don't need to call and report if I see one.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when these alligators are, let's say that my neighbors were feeding an alligator in a community pond, and the alligator is getting more and more bold and aggressive and approaching us, then I do need to call.
Absolutely. Please let us know about situations like that. And it's not necessarily that we want to go to a neighbor or someone that is feeding an alligator and cite them, with a ticket.
Could they be cited?
They very much could be cited.
Okay.
It is against the law to feed alligators in the state of Alabama. But we definitely want to approach them to make them aware of the dangers that they could be creating.
Now, what kind of steps as a pet owner can I take to make sure that there's no mishaps between my pet and an alligator in the community?
Well, really, it's just the exact same thing that I mentioned earlier as far as us swimming. You wouldn't want to take your pet lab, to play in the water late evening. If you're going to do something like that, do it at 12 o'clock, or maybe do it in an area where you would not expect to see an alligator. But if you take your pet, regardless of what size dog it is, and it's playing in the water, the alligator doesn't know the difference between a lab dog and a feral swine, but he is looking for a meal.
Okay. So these alligators, when they catch something, let's think of something big. Let's talk about big alligators. You told me a little alligator might eat crickets and minnows.
Right.
But that large alligator that's catching something like a deer, how does he eat it? How does he get that down his throat?
Well, they don't do a whole lot of chewing. They do a whole lot of biting.
Okay.
So they may stash some of their food. If it's a real large animal that they do harvest, but I can't imagine an alligator eating a whole deer all at one time. But it may not be just a large animal that large alligators are feeding on. They're going to feed on snakes and turtles and raccoons or whatever that presents itself.
Can they catch birds?
They can. A lot of wading birds, like I said, they are very, very opportunistic, so they don't turn down a meal.
And what about other alligators?
Most definitely.
They eat each other?
Most definitely.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, when alligators are actually born, the mother stays around the nest to protect the alligators. But one of the bigger threats to baby alligators is other alligators. So that's one of the reasons why she is nurturing those little guys like she does.
Because other gators might come and eat them.
Other alligators, other birds, fish, anything can eat a baby alligator. But definitely other alligators, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a baby alligator. They'll prey. A large male will prey on any size alligator.
Wow. Now, if she's not guarding a nest, is there a way I could tell a female from a male?
Really, the only way that you can tell for sure is with by actually examining the alligator. All of the reproductive organs in alligators are contained inside. But one thing that you can tell with fully mature males and females, a female alligator is not going to get much bigger than, say, 9.5 to 10 foot.
Okay.
Would be an extremely large female. Most of them probably the 8 to 9 foot range. So if you see an alligator that is above 10 foot in length, there's a high probability that it's going to be a male alligator.
So the males will get larger and
Absolutely.
heavier?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, so we want to avoid conflicts with alligators. We know that they are our neighbors and they're here to stay. And we're just careful in the areas where they may be and just be mindful, understand them so that there's safety
Correct.
issues that are being observed. But if there's one in my community and I want it gone, I cannot shoot it.
You can't shoot it. An alligator is a federally protected species. What you can do is contact us, you can go to our website, outdooralabama.com, find the appropriate office to call and contact a biologist to come out or a conservation officer to come out and kind of inspect what's going on. I make many visits back home where I live, and it may be as simple as a telephone call that I can solve the problem with. I may have to do a visit to the property and really handle the situation just through educational purposes.
But in general, removing them and relocating them is usually just not necessary and doesn't really have much of a purpose.
In general, unless the alligator is posing a threat to our safety, pets, or livestock, is typically the three reasons why we would remove an alligator. Now, when we do remove one, if we see that that alligator poses a threat to any of those three things, we're not going to relocate that animal. Mm-hmm. We're going to remove it from the population. One thing that we do not want to do is take a problem from one spot and move it to another.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that despite the fact that they are a protected species, there is a legal way to hunt alligators in Alabama. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Back in 2006, we started the very first alligator hunt here in Alabama. That year we had 50 tags available, and it was restricted to a small area down in the Mobile Tensile Delta.
So only 50 people were selected that first time?
That first year, yes ma'am.
Now, how did you know that the population of our state's alligators was able to support a hunt?
Well, each year we do population surveys, and they're going to be scattered throughout the southern portion of the state, which is primarily the natural range of the American alligator here in Alabama. But we monitor the species with these surveys, looking at trends. I mean, there's no way for us to go out and say, there's X number of alligators in Barber County or Baldwin County. But we can do certain routes and do them the same time each year, and carry those routes out by the same people, and we'll look at trends. Like say in 2010, I'll run a route and say I counted 1,300 alligators on this route. I can remember that number that year and look at it over a period of time to see if that population is actually increasing or decreasing in that area.
So these surveys include actual boots on the ground looking for gators and getting an idea for how many are in an area. You're actually out there taking account?
Absolutely, yeah. Mostly not boots on the ground, usually boots in the boat.
Boots in the boat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about these surveys. How easy is it to spot a gator? Again, some people have gone their whole lives and not
Right.
seen but one or two. How are you able to see so many? Tell me about your surveys.
Well, if you'll remember earlier, I mentioned that the alligators are mostly active at night.
Mm-hmm.
And how we spot the alligators is through eye shine. So when you shine a spotlight on an alligator, his eyes are going to glow. It's going to be kind of a reddish, orangish looking color. So we do an eyeball count basically on the alligators.
And then you just have to divide it.
Divide it in half.
And then you know how many alligators you
Correct.
see.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, okay, so you've done these surveys for years,
Mm-hmm.
discovered that Alabama's population was very fortunately increasing and able to support a hunt.
Right.
And first you started out with 50 folks drawing a tag, and tell me where we are now.
Well, right now, as I mentioned, we had 50 tags that first year. In one zone down in the Mobile Tensile Delta. We still have that zone. It's referred to now as the Southwest Zone. But the hunt has actually grown into a total of 4 zones, including that one. So we have the Southwest Zone, which will have 150 tags available right now for it. We have the West Central Zone, which is an area in around the Camden area. We have 50 tags available there. We have the Southeast Zone, which is about a 10-county area in the southeastern portion of the state, and then we have the Lake Eufaula Zone, which is just the Lake Eufaula proper and its natural tributaries. So we have 20 tags in Lake Eufaula and then 40 tags on in the Southeast Zone.
Wow.
So a total of 260 tags.
That's great.
Right.
So we have enough alligators to support this number of take?
Right, and it's not that we have an overpopulation of alligators, but as a department, we're in charge of managing the species and making sure that species is protected. But we also want to allow the residents of Alabama to have the opportunity to hunt if that species can sustain it. So that's kind of at the point that we're at now.
Well, this is great news. So if a hunter is hearing about this and is interested in being selected, how does he go about applying for this?
Right. Well, all these tags are going to be distributed out through all the applicants. the way that that is done is through just a random computer drawing. So you'll start the application process, and we usually start that the beginning of June of each year, and that application process will run approximately 5 to 6 weeks, close to the middle of July. And we'll stop that. Then once we get all the applications in, then we'll do the random drawing and notify everyone of if they were selected for the tag or not.
So they have to apply, see if they're drawn.
Yes, ma'am.
And they may be one of the lucky alligator hunters out there.
That's right.
Tell me about the preference points. How does that system work?
In the beginning, you could register as many times as you wanted to. I think it was like $6 or $7, for each registration. Well, we kind of got to looking at that process, and it wasn't really fair to everyone. I know I couldn't afford to put in as many times as maybe some of my friends could. So looking at that portion of it, we changed it up to where it's just a minimal administrative fee for a one-time application. You'll apply for it, and you can apply every year regardless of whether you get drawn one year or not. But we implemented the preference point system to really increase your odds. Say if you hadn't drawn a tag in 3 years, you would have a higher opportunity of drawing a tag this year than someone that drew a tag the previous year.
Well, that's great. Now, if you did draw a tag in the previous year and successfully took a gator, can you still apply? Are you still eligible?
Absolutely, yeah. The way the preference point works is we'll take 85% of the tags, and we will fill those with the people that has preference points. The remaining 15% of the tags will be filled from the people without preference points. So that way everyone has an opportunity. It's just that the people that has not drawn recently has a higher opportunity.
Now, who is eligible to apply?
Anybody that is a resident of the state of Alabama can apply for a tag, as well as lifetime license holders. So say I bought a lifetime license in Alabama last year and I decided to move to Georgia, I could still come back and hunt alligators in Alabama.
And how do they apply? Is this done online?
It is, yep. Everything is done online. You will go to outdooralabama.com. There'll be a link at the bottom of our page, and you can click through that. Very simple process. You put your conservation ID number in, your information will pop up, and you just select the zones that you wish to apply for.
All right, so let's say I'm a successful applicant, I've drawn a tag,
right,
and I'm going on a gator hunt. What do I need?
Well, it depends on where you're going to be hunting at. That's going to be first. But the main thing is you're going to need a boat. Mm-hmm. Alligators are going to be living in the river system. But once you get your boat, there's 4 legal ways to actually capture an alligator, or 4 legal tools that you can use. One is going to be a snatch hook, just a handheld snatch hook. 2 is going to be a harpoon. 3 is bow fishing equipment, and the 4th is going to be just a hook and line, which is by far probably the most popular and the most productive way to actually capture the alligator.
Now, walk me through that.
Okay. Well, the majority of our hunts are only going to be taking place at night. There is one zone at Lake Eufaula that you can hunt daytime and nighttime hours, but most of the hunting is going to be done during the nighttime. We talked earlier about spotting the alligators. You're going to have a spotlight, and once you find the alligator that you want to try to harvest, you get up to it and you have to capture it first. So that's where the hook and line is going to come in. So you'll snatch the alligator and you get it up to the boat. And one of the requirements that we have for alligator hunters is to actually secure the alligator before you dispatch it. So if you just have a hook and line on a 600 or 700 pound alligator, one thing that you don't want to do is shoot the alligator and end up losing it. So we make you secure the alligator, with a noose or something that's attached to the boat before you dispatch it.
And I've dispatched my gator, taken it home. What do I do with it?
Now the work begins.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So the best thing to do is to have a plan in place prior to actually killing your alligator. But before you actually take the alligator home, you have to come back and see us first. You know, as I mentioned earlier, they are a federally protected species. So there has to be a federal CITES tag applied to this alligator before you can keep it. So we'll give you the tag, and you take the alligator home, and you need to remember that these are cold-blooded animals again, so the alligator has to be iced down and cooled quickly. So, you know, if you're going to process it, you either need to get the whole animal in a cooler or process the animal quickly and get the meat in the cooler to take care of it.
And people eat them. I've eaten them. You've
Absolutely.
eaten them? They taste good, don't they?
Yeah, tastes like chicken.
They do, yes. Now, we have had some successful hunters in the past kill some fairly large gators in Alabama, haven't we?
We have. We've actually had, you know, I guess you could say the world record alligator harvested here in Alabama, and then a close second to that, I think year before last, that was actually harvested over in Lake Eufaula. So some really big alligators, and you know, in 3 of the 4 hunting zones, there is no size limitation. So we've had some pretty small alligators killed.
Yeah,
too.
so all sorts of opportunities for alligator hunters
To
out
each
here.
their own. You know,
Absolutely.
everyone has different needs and different desires.
Well, this is all really exciting. I've learned a lot about alligators today, and I wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted to add that you would like to share about alligators in Alabama.
Well, you know, we've covered a lot about the species today. I guess the big take-home message is don't be scared of them. They're a pretty cool species. You know, if you have questions about it, that's what we're here for. So just, you know, look us up on outdooralabama.com. Give us a call at any of the district offices, and we'll help you out any way that we can.
Well, I thank you for coming to visit us today and talk to us about our wild aquatic alligator neighbors. It's very exciting. I look forward to hearing more about the upcoming hunts. If you're a hunter that's interested in applying to hunt alligator in Alabama, you can go to our website, outdooralabama.com, and you can also go there to learn any information about alligators or any of our other wonderful wildlife species. Thank you for joining us.